you all have collections that you can wear forever. But do you think that within the fashion industry, which is so much about the seasons and the collection, how can you imagine the future? Do you see a future with no more seasonal collection, or do you think it's going to be sort of a process? Or
yeah, okay. So I think like the trend that we see is that even the massive brand, even the luxury brand, for example Burberry, very recently, just last year or 2 years ago, they are starting to shift more, like reducing their collections a lot. They used to have like 12 collections per year, and they just cut to 6, and they are reducing a lot more. I think it's good to not have so many collections. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, buy something every week? What is wrong with you? Like, don't you have some other investments? I don't know. I think there is a shift. It's a needed shift. I think this came only when the customer base revolted and said, we don't agree with this anymore. There's too much choice. I don't know where to put my money anymore. And there's too much competition. A lot of it is going to waste. People don't like this. Yeah.
So I work in industry, and it's not doing very well because people are understanding what's going on, but it's taking time for the high street to understand what's going on. So people are not buying as much. They're thinking carefully about good quality. Do I need that? So it is happening, and I agree. The high end, like, they are slowing down. The high street inspires to high end. So once the president is kind of set, then the high street will kind of follow. So, but it's just taking its time, I think.
Yeah, and also maybe we need a bit more thought leadership into that, because I feel that there is a lot of things about communicating as well, like the images. So it's things that we see a lot on other industries.
I feel like it should be coming from the big brands, because they've got the reach, they've got the customers, but obviously they want the money. But they should be using that their reach to kind of educate people and be like, this is what's happening in the world, and making a change, and using fabrics that are actually good, biodegradable, and educating the customer rather than promoting what's happening and what all your slideshows were showing, you know, bad things. So I feel like they've got the power, but they're just not using it in the right way.
I think I have just one thing to add, which is that it all comes down to the business model. The big fast fashion companies are all incentivized to push product. So I might be a bit more pessimistic than you, because as long as, you know, they are trying to create profit and their whole system is based on pushing product, I don't see why they would change, unless there's a huge shift from the consumer demand. And I think that can only be driven through, you know, pioneers like us, sort of trying to influence people's opinions, and also by you who are actively making a different choice.
Yeah, so if we think about that the shift needs to come from the consumer, it feels that the price is a big incentive for the consumer in their choice. But do you think, I saw a question passing by on Slido from someone from the audience that was saying, how can I buy sustainable if I'm on a budget? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I think somebody already asked me about the price of the suit, and yeah, it's always a huge topic, but I feel like we have really been educated into the wrong way. To me, fast fashion is like, it's as if we're all eating with plastic forks at home, you know? That's just insane. Like, we don't need to buy lots of cheap stuff and throw it out all the time. We can just buy something that has more quality, keep it for longer, yeah, and be happy with that. So I feel like, yeah, we just need to shift our idea about how fashion should be priced.
If you want to add something.
I just want to add to that. I 100% agree, and I still remember though, like, because I don't know, in Italy we are still a bit weird on this sense. We think we know everything about fashion, which is not true, but we know a bit, and food. But the thing is, I grew up in a way that, you know, like every time you buy something, some clothing, you touch it, you feel it, you see if the quality is right for you, and then it's worth the price, even if it's a bit higher than a Zara t-shirt. Zara, I actually like Zara, don't get me wrong, but still, or H&M t-shirt. I don't like H&M. It's worth it because I know that that piece is gonna last me 5, 7 years, 10, if I treat it very well, which is the whole point. I think like fashion, like any other thing that we buy, it's like it needs to be saved for. You save your money to buy that thing. Like you save your money to buy your new laptop, your new iPhone, your new TV, or cutlery, and so on.
Yeah, so why don't doing it for clothing as well? And I think that goes a lot with educating as well. But do you see already things happening in that area as well? Because obviously you guys are producing, you're doing the hard work. But on the other side, do you see things happening in this area?
I did a interview on the BBC just last week, and it was about sustainable fashion. And I was a sustainable designer, and then I was faced with people that were into fast fashion. But the argument is quite understandable. They were saying, we don't know enough about it, and why are we going to pay these prices, like you're saying? But then I was telling them that you need to make good decisions, and you know, it comes from the top. I feel personally it comes from the top. The brands at the top need to invest in these fabrics, biodegradable fabrics, these good fabrics. So it is affordable, and so it's not at that higher price. And the fast fashion consumer was like, if it was affordable, I would buy it. But they're all into like looking great on their IG and everything. But you know, I was like, you need to kind of have your own identity and stop following the things that are on social media and the trends and whatnot. So it was an interesting debate. But at the end of it, I feel like you're right. You need to make wise choices in what you do buy and invest in something that's going to last you a long time, rather than just like one wear and then you're done with it. Yeah.
Just to add on that, the collaboration that we do with the divers, they are a non-profit initiative, and in their program they also have the goal of raising awareness, and they go in school and work with children and just explain to the children how all these things that we create, sometimes that we created in the past, sometimes they don't have a good purpose. So it's good to work from education, like early on as possible. We are all examples from the choices that we make, and children are all looking at us, every little kid in the street. If it's not even your son is looking at you at a certain point, you want to portray a nice example.
Yeah, just to come back on the material, because you mentioned the fishing nets. So it's one thing to source it first, but I was wondering as well, do you have any other challenges in working with alternative materials? As you know, in the production line, some stuff that doesn't work because it's not the standardized one. Yeah.
So I went through a really interesting process constructing the suit. We actually partnered with an agency called Circular Fashion, and they also help big brands like Hugo Boss to become more sustainable. And every part of the garment is fully biodegradable, even the buttons and the stitching and everything. And yeah, there's a huge problem in the normal fashion industry that, for example, the stitching is often polyester, and you know, or the buttons are made from plastic, and it just creates this mishmash of different materials that you can then not recycle. And it was definitely a challenging process to construct it fully biodegradable, because the materials react differently, and they're a bit, you know, you need to be really careful about the construction process. But then I think fashion is always challenging, you know, when you put together a new outfit, and so many things can happen with new fabrics. So yeah, I think, I don't know, I've never done a full collection of normal fashion, so I don't know, but I just expect it to be difficult anyway.
Anything to add, Priya, maybe with working with bamboo, any challenges within the production line?
I think when you're kind of sold a fabric, you kind of have to sometimes go by whatever the supplier is kind of telling you. And I feel like, you know, you kind of have to trust the people that you're kind of buying the stuff from. And it's hard to kind of be like, okay, where did you get that from? Did you do all the tests? Blah, blah, blah. It's kind of on trust. So it is tough. The process is tough. You just have to kind of, I just try and educate my customer, and like the process is so hard to like just get something that is sustainable. But it's a hard process.
Yeah.
To avoid this, because it's a hard process. Usually like swimwear, you have the fabric that goes on the outside and the lining that goes on the inside, which is a different fabric. And I was like, the lining is not sustainable. What should I do with this? So that's why I decided, I was like, I'm gonna double it. It's gonna cost more, but on the upside, it lasts longer, is 100% sustainable, and it has that very nice effect of just like giving a nice silhouette. It's like, so yeah, it's very hard though, very, very hard.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna see if anyone from the audience has more questions to ask. So let me just load that. Let's see if we can display them. We had a bit of Wi-Fi issues. Wait. Yeah, meanwhile, while we're charging that, we had a very interesting conversation with Hannah earlier, and we were saying that the second-hand industry is like moving, like is growing twice as fast than the retail one. And yeah, I was just wondering if you had any thought on that, like especially you, Priya, because you're working with second-hand clothing. And it's great to hear those kind of numbers. We've all been talking about dramatic numbers, but yeah, to hear that second-hand is growing is definitely good news, right? Yeah, any particular, like I guess it was kind of like a logic answer for you to work with second-hand.
There's a massive market on there, on second-hand vintage clothing. I specialise like in denim, so I know denim is strong and it's not gonna wear away. It's good quality, so I always choose good quality second-hand items, and I upcycle them. So I paint on them, embroider them. Customers send me their old garments, and then I'll make it new again. So there's a massive market for it, and people are really intrigued by it. So there's a jacket at the back of the room which has got just a painting on it, but the amount of people that are interested in it, the fact that something has been given a second life and is not just chucked away, there's loads of people that are interested in it.
Yeah, also just I think if you're really into vintage clothing and you know your way around vintage shops, it's an amazing way to buy cheap stuff. You know, that is very sustainable. There's nothing more sustainable than to buy second-hand clothing. So I really hope that especially younger people who might not have such a big budget, you know, look into that more. And I feel like there's a trend emerging. So I think what I told you is 21 times faster the growth in the resale market than the normal fashion market. That's a study that's come out recently. So I think that's very encouraging in terms of consumer behavior.
Yeah, and that's actually the most upvoted question was how can sustainable fashion be made accessible for people who can't afford it? So yeah, second hand is one of the options.
But then I would also question everybody who said that it's not affordable, that maybe you need to rethink, you know, what it's worth. Yeah, you need to, it's all about priorities, and I mean, this sounds harsh, but if you're not paying for it, then someone else is paying for it. You know, all your clothes are handmade, even if they cost €5 or £5.
Yeah, and I think that, again, you need to save for what you buy, even if it's fashion. And I don't even like to call it fashion anymore. It's fashionable. It's not a trend. It's something like choose your style and stick to it. If you have a style, whatever you buy, you can wear it again, and it's an investment. if it's a good piece, it's a bit of an investment. So it's not that you're buying that and that month your budget is gone. You're buying that, and that cost you split it for the next 4 or 5 years, 4 or 5 seasons that you're gonna wear that. It doesn't matter if everyone saw it on Instagram. Like, you are not a prop. You don't want to be fooled by these huge companies. You don't want to be fooled by these huge brands. And I studied branding and I worked in branding. Like, you don't need just a pretty story and a beautiful model telling you how you should look like, what should you buy. You can make your own decisions. Just make it wise, and remember that every time that you spend your money that you earned, you are casting a vote.
Yeah. Anything to add on the no? Okay, cool. So second question is, sustainability is measured in multiple ways: waste, CO2, water consumption. How do you guys measure the overall impact of your products? Any particular metrics that you're looking at, or is it the overall?
So for the swimwear, the regeneration process happens is 100% fueled by solar panels. The place, the firm where the process happens, and the manufacturers that I found as well, they are very close to where the regeneration process happens. So I think even transportation is a bit reduced. It's a very limited collection. I try not to ship it by itself, but I travel with it with a big suitcase that my boyfriend hates because he needs to carry. So yeah, I try to do my best. We have on our website some infographics from the initiative of divers and how many tons of fishing nets they've recovered in the past years.
I don't really have that problem because most of my business is based on recycling and upcycling, so it's just using old and making it new again.
So constructing the suit, we try to bring 2 things together. One is create something that our customers would really love, because what's the point of creating something that is super sustainable but nobody wants to wear? So that was part of the mission from the beginning of Silva, to have clothing that would, inspire people to actually consume more sustainably. And then every aspect of the suit we chose together with this agency, Circular Fashion, and tried to create a balance between an innovative, sustainable element about the part that we were putting in, and also the consumer side, so making it look good and comfortable and so on.
Yeah, and to come back to what you just mentioned about transportation, that's something that we live in a global world now, and the 3 of you are starting their own brand, and you will have to ship clothes at some point if you want to have a global brand. So do you think it's possible to have a global sustainable brand? Although, yeah.
It's very hard because we don't have any control on the shipping, on these shipping companies. So it's very hard from a small brand to make these type of decisions because we don't count much for them. So they are not willing to change their ways. But on a positive note, since I used to work in aviation and blah blah blah, electrical planes are the new hype at the moment in aviation. I still follow the industry somehow. In the recent fair in Paris, the Boeing and Rolls-Royce and Siemens started this collaboration to create a 100% electrical plane. So we are heading towards something that reduces CO2. And hopefully, when this becomes a mainstream thing, it can be used also for shipping.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard because the industry is what it is, and we're just starting on this journey of trying to make a difference. So there's big changes to be made, but I suppose that's where slow fashion comes in, and you're not doing it as much. You're just doing it it's not seasonal, it's slow.
And it starts locally as well.
Yeah.
It has to. So then we're getting a bit more technical. How do you wash the recycled nylon without releasing microplastic into water?
Yeah. Good question. Thank you. It is hard. So the fishing nets disintegrate into microplastic because they are exposed for a long period of time in saline water and UV lights. Still, when you wash your clothes, microplastics can be released. So it's less microplastics are released when you wash your clothes at like a cold temperature and by hand. Like in the care leaflets that you get, don't tumble dry, don't use anything like hot water. It's like normal temperature water, and just leave it to dry like flat. It's the best way. It's like impossible not to release microplastics when you wash. And also like try to use a sustainable like wash thingy, like liquid, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have anything to add on that one, we have other questions about material. What alternatives did you find to the actual dyeing process? Any of you researched that?
So for the suits, we are working with sustainable fabric makers. Actually, the fabric making is one of the most environmentally impactful things that people, I feel, don't really know about. I feel like people know about the working conditions and stuff, and they always worry, oh, is that like, is it fairly made? But that, like, the fabric making is a huge aspect. And we are going to work with a company in Spain, and they are EcoStep verified. So they use environmentally friendly dyes, and also they sort of recycle the water, the polluted water, in a way where they extract all the chemicals and they don't release it into rivers or whatever.
So there is already alternatives processes
Exactly.
in place.
And that was also, and because it's such a complicated process for me, that was also a reason why I wanted to produce in Europe, or because we have really strict rules here, and I think that sort of gave me trust that, you know, it would be done in a way that is more environmentally friendly.
And we have another question about material, which is how expensive is organic bamboo?
It's expensive. There's not enough people buying into it, so unfortunately it is expensive at the moment. I feel like people don't really understand. Like, so when I brought this product out, people didn't understand it, so people weren't buying it. So I've had to kind of educate people through like social media and talking, but I still feel there's a lot to kind of educate people about the fabric. People are getting it now, like, you know, doing these talks and telling people about what the positive parts of the fabric are, but it's expensive, unfortunately, because no one's investing in it. So it's like polyester is so cheap because everyone's like churning it out. Obviously that's not going to happen with bamboo, but if more people were confident to invest in it, then the price would reduce, but that's not the case at the moment. Got to keep going.
Then we have, okay, that's very specific. Okay, let's go for a very general one. I have, what advice would you give to students who are interested in a career in sustainability within textile, fashion, embroidery industry? So advice for people who want to start fashion, sustainable fashion.
What do you mean, their own brand? Or?
I guess, yeah. Who are interested in a career within.
I feel...
If anyone wants to specify the question, go ahead.
I think if you're passionate enough to do it, then it's a hard thing to do, because there's a lot of things that are against you, but you just have to be really positive and believe in what you want and the change that you want to create, and just keep going with it. But it is a hard journey, but hopefully your passion and your positivity will get you through those hurdles.
Yeah, it's also like, I think you need to be ready to make a compromise at the beginning of your career, because you're not gonna end up in a huge brand maybe, and you're gonna have to struggle a bit more. But there's a positive side, because all sustainable brands have a different environment, also like emotionally, from like the rest of fashion. I think that's what my experience, and it's a kinder environment, and it's more respectful towards the human, towards the people that work in the company as well.
So we're changing a bit topic, but I saw a few questions about standardized size or custom fits. How did you design your collections? Are they standardized, or do you do custom?
So we go from small to extra small to large. We can't really do standardized, like a unique size for swimwear. It's very hard. Because everyone has a different body. The fabric is not so stretchy. Yeah, it's very hard. It would be nice to find something that fits everyone. One of my challenges at the moment, when I do my pop-ups, or like today, I have my collection with me. Women, when they try it, sometimes they're like, oh, I don't know. They're very conscious of their body. And that breaks my heart a little, because I see them and they're beautiful. But I totally understand that someone needs to be to feel comfortable in what they're wearing, like to feel confident enough. And I've been like spending time trying through my personal profile and my blog, trying to build confidence in these women, to like just see that you are beautiful as you are. Like, nobody has to be like the cover model on Vogue. You are as beautiful as you look, as everyone sees you. Sometimes we see like defects on them that are not really there. And that goes on sizing as well. When they buy, when they have to buy a large, and they'll be like, oh my God, this is a large. I am a large. So what? You're like perfectly proportionate. You look beautiful. It's just a letter. It doesn't mean anything.
So part of setting up this brand was based on, I used to be a tomboy before. I know I'm wearing a dress now, but I used to get judged a lot for working in the industry. Like dressing like a tomboy wasn't fashionable then. It is now. It's a trend now. So I wanted to, all of my stuff is genderless, so men can wear it and women can wear it. So small, medium, large, extra large, I've kind of merged women's wear sizes with men's wear sizes and made it kind of together. So that kind of backs the sustainable part as well. So it's not parted. So it's all like one size set for both sexes. Yeah.
When we constructed the suit, we actually brought together a group of 10 women who brought their favorite clothes and their most worn clothes, and then they presented why they were wearing these trousers all the time or this top all the time, and we tried to bring the design elements together, and I think we've created a really interesting fit through this process. Like, for example, we have an elastic in the back of the trousers, so it fits different bum shapes. And then what happened was, like 2-3 weeks before we started the crowdfunding, lots of men started saying to me, oh, but I want to buy a suit. And then I was like, I don't know, the jacket's not going to fit you. And then we just said, okay, we're going to make a men's version as well. And I think through that process, we've just created a fit that just really suits lots of people. And we also went through a prototyping process. So in the beginning, we had a cut that was really not that great, but I wore it and people gave me feedback, and then we changed it 2-3 times to really get to a shape that fits lots of people. And now we just do extra small to extra large, and yeah.
And there was another question for you that was saying, are you planning to launch any other product, or are you gonna stick with that collection for a while.
So what we want to finance with the crowdfunding is the first colors. The suit is actually white because there's minimum order quantities on the fabric, and we want to do black, white, and blue as the first 3 colors, and then we've actually designed a sweater to go with it, so that's the 3rd product. And then I feel like we need to see what people want. If people want lots more colors, but just the suit, we'll do that. If people want other materials like linen or something else, we'll do that. Or if people actually end up saying they want a t-shirt subscription, maybe we add that to the offering. I just want to stay really open-minded and see what the customers want and go into that direction.
Cool. So we have a question about business model. Can you imagine a business model that's aligned with sustainability? And I think that's a very interesting question about giving maybe incentive to customer to recycle by sending back the items. Is it something that you've thought about, or know any brands that are integrating sustainability in the entire cycle? Or do you think that's...
Well, the whole upcycling jackets that I do is kind of like, if you have something that you're thinking of chucking away, you can send it through to me and I can just upcycle it. They give me a concept, and then I only buy vintage jackets and upcycle them. So yeah, it's giving it a second life.
Yeah, I think for us all, like the incipit of the core proposition of every brand that we have is sustainability, and our business brand, like our vision of sustainability, starts from the very beginning, from the designing, and then it goes into the manufacturing and how the garment is worn and what you do after. So as I said, like the swimsuit is like the highest quality of a swimsuit. You can wear it 5, 6 years, 7, and then you can put it back in the industry, and the swimsuit can be regenerated again. The fabric is regenerated again and again and again, like infinite times. I think that that is very strong already. But also, like, what are you doing, like, with, or you're planning to do with the subscription? I think that's very sustainable as well.
Yeah, I think changing the business model is really at the core of what I'm trying to do, is not just push product onto people, but sell them services that incentivizes us as a company as well as the customer to maintain the clothing.
So yeah, the question keeps on moving. As a fashion student on a budget, where can you get sustainable materials at a cheaper price? So obviously we said about upcycling, partnerships with associations, but anything very specific for...
So you don't need to invest in a fabric that's sustainable. You can use end-of-line fabric. There's fabrics that companies chuck away and they're just going to burn it or whatever. So there are places in Hackney that I go to visit a lot, and you can just buy rolls of fabric that they're just planning on chucking away and just create something new from it.
Yeah, and that's I can imagine very cheap compared to...
Yeah, definitely.
And you can get amazing quality.
Yeah.
Can I just add on to that? Where do you find factories that are willing to sell you their end-of-line fabric? You just ask certain companies?
I go to wholesalers.
Oh, okay.
So there's like places in Hackney, I've forgotten the name of it, but I'll come back to you. But they have loads of rolls of fabric. Like companies that they buy it off companies and sell it at cheap prices, and it's really good quality stuff. So they get it from like really high-end companies and they sell it at like a fraction of the price.
Okay, cool. I have a question about the QR code on the back of the jacket. Can you explain what is it for?
Yeah, so the QR code is the first piece of software that we've put into the suit. It's a circularity ID that comes through our partner Circular Fashion. Basically, it's a QR code that links to a URL where you can see a product page that explains how the suit is composed, where it was produced, when it was produced, and gives you as the customer insight into where the product comes from. But then also with our recycler, they can use it to understand the composition of the product. And this is trying to solve one of the key issues around mechanical recycling of clothing, which is that we have lots of mixed ingredients in the fabrics, and we have a mix as well, but it's all very clear through the circularity idea.
Yes, so it's about transparency of the product. And I guess you girls also are very transparent about each product, where is it from, on the website. It's about information. And I think to come back with the information, I have a few questions about promotion and Instagram. And I was wondering, what do you think about, would you promote your brand as sustainable first? Or is sustainable is an addition to your brand? Is it the core, or is it something, will you use it as a selling point? And any thought on promotion and sustainability?
So this was very hard for me at the beginning because I didn't know how, like what is most important for people. And then I realized, speaking with people during the pop-ups and so on, people do care about sustainability a lot. When it comes to fashion, to clothing, to something that they put on themselves, if it's not nice on them, if they don't like it, then sustainability comes as a second factor. So online, on social, and on my marketing at least, sustainability is always there because this is how I wanted it to be. This is why I started the brand. But it's very important that the design is beautiful as well, so the style of it is beautiful. You can style it with different things. You can wear it not only at the beach, you can wear it in the city with a nice skirt, at a festival with like shorts and stuff like that. So it's important, both style and sustainability, a lot.
Yeah, I use sustainable against my brand because the consumer needs to know if it is sustainable or not. If not, then the problem that's happening at the moment, which is people are buying stuff because they're not educated about what the implications of it are, you need to kind of put that label on it so people know that it is good for the environment.
Any media outlet, like email, newsletter, or magazine with a focus on sustainability you could recommend to people who want to learn more about the topic?
Yeah,
I think it's a hard one, that one.
Oh, I have one. So eLooks magazine, it's a good one on fashion and on like nice luxury fashion, which is not like just ugly to look at, but it's also beautiful and it has a good purpose. I would say BOF, Business of Fashion, I think many of you know this, but it's getting more and more sustainable, but you have to look for it still. It looks like it's a bit of a trend that they think, like, no, sustainability is not a trend, it's there to stay. Something else, there are many, they just don't come to mind immediately, but Eco Age as well, if you follow their social media, they put a lot of interesting news about sustainability. It's a consultancy. Something else.
I think if you put the hashtag on Instagram, sustainable, a lot will come up. Like sometimes when I'm unsure of something, I'll just search that, and so many brands will come up that are doing similar things, and like it's interesting to see what other people are doing. So that's kind of what I do. Yeah. Just kind of use that.
There's a lot of bloggers and on Instagram a lot of people who promote sustainable brands, stylists, people who work in the industry who focus on sustainable fashion. So trying to just follow these people, you'll find out more.
Yeah. I just wanted to add another one, which is Fashion Revolution, which has been going on for a while and it's still very good. They're still very active. Me as well on my personal profile, which is Miss White Knight. I'm small, but I still like collaborate with sustainable independent brands other than my own brand to just like push them a little and raise awareness.
Cool. So I'm gonna ask one last question that has been upvoted quite a lot. Is about how did you start? How did you get the money to start your brand? Did you have any investment to start? And I think that would be nice to go along with advice, because it feels that there's a lot of people who wants to start their own brand in the room.
So I think for me, I prefer to go in it myself, just because I didn't want somebody else telling me what to do, where to take the brand, and have like that massive thing hanging over my head every time if I didn't agree with them. But it depends on every person, and I don't exclude like partnering with somebody that is like-minded and has the same vision of me. But sometimes like investors can be a bit too powerful in that sense with their opinions. And for me, like the cause come first, always.
So I'm self-funded. I agree with you that if investors, they need to be on the right page as you, because sometimes they can kind of force you down a path that you don't actually want to go, but they've invested in you. So you have to be careful. Yeah, you just have to know what you're getting into if you do get investment, and what their objectives are and what they're into and what you believe in. So you kind of just have to.
And you can also look through crowdfunding, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of self-funded, but then the whole prototyping process was too expensive for me to fund by myself. So I actually do have an investor, but it's not, I don't know how to explain it. It's just not a real investor. It's just someone who kind of gave me money to do the prototyping, but has no say in the business, just because that person believes in the mission that I'm trying to follow. But I do believe and this is maybe also because I'm from the startup industry, like if you want to really grow an idea, you do need money. This is my view. So I feel like with the crowdfunding, we're now at a stage where we have a validated concept, and it'd be really amazing to have someone on board who actually embraces the values of the brand and wants to take it forward, but give it, the wings that it needs to actually reach more people.
Yeah.
So I started my brand. I applied to through the Princess Trust, and they've helped me a lot. So if anyone is looking to set up their own thing, I would highly recommend. Like, they are so amazing. They give you a mentor. They kind of guide you through your business plan and networking events. So yeah, they were great for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Part of the Princess Trust as well. So that was my last question, but I didn't ask them all. So if anyone wants to add something before we close the panel. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask what high street stores you think are making improvements on the industry and are probably in most of our price ranges and budgets, if any.
Is anyone better than the others, maybe?
Like, it's hard because as we learned the hard way, when we were starting, I think all of us starting like to build the brand, fashion is a bit like a body with a disease, and and you keep like, take antibiotics and be like, no, I don't want it. So it's very hard to like tell you like a high street brand that is doing good. They are all like trying or like telling you that they are trying, but a lot of it is greenwashing. A lot of it. So the only thing that you can do when you buy high street, because I'm not like demonizing everyone that buys high street, the only thing that you can do is buy it and take care of it as much as you can, and like not try to buy it every week or so. Yeah.
Something that you actually love and not just something that you will wear once or twice.
Cool. Maybe we ask one last question. Anyone wants to come? Yeah, come. I'm a bit stuck in here.
I was just wondering if there were any positive sides to a sustainable process, or is every step of it like 30% more difficult, if you know what I mean?
Or something easy, you mean?
Does a sustainable process make any of the parts of it easier, or every step that you're doing is more difficult, if you know what I mean?
I think for me, for example, I think it's been hard. I can't tell you that it's been easy. It's been hard, but the reward that you get because you are fueling your values, you are fueling something that you believe in, that keeps you going. And hopefully once it's like set, you know, it's gonna be easier. That's what I think.
Anything to add on the process? Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that my journey has been very hard. I've never done a normal fashion brand, but I think any idea you want to bring to life is tough, you know. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it. And with the crowdfunding, for me, it's been an amazing experience so far. We have more than 140 people who've backed the project in the last like 3.5, 4 weeks. So for me, that's incredible.